Well, Chris Cuomo, as you know, is a CNN anchor, and his brother happens to be the governor of New York State. The two of them have had quite a banter recently, and one of the subjects that they talked about was Chris saying he had come down with a case of coronavirus. He said it was awful, but thankfully he recovered very quickly, and lucky for him, had something to talk about every day on the show, including appearing with a cameo appearance on his brother, the governor's press conference. It was quite something. And the other day, Chris brought on CNN's in-house doctor, their expert on all things medical, to look over Chris Cuomo's chest x-rays. Well, that sounded like a good idea. Let me show you a clip from how that went.
When I saw that x-ray that I showed to people earlier, the second I looked at it, I saw infiltrate on it, even though I don't know what infiltrate even means, except as a verb. And I was in a panic as soon as I saw it. So Sanjay, a lot of people now, God love them, people have been so good and supportive. They're seeing the x-rays and they're saying, holy cow, you're really sick. I see the infiltrate in there. Will you explain to people how having some infiltrate doesn't mean that you're necessarily in a bad way?
Yeah, right. I mean, infiltrate, for the purposes of diagnosing this, usually means, and we can put up the x-ray again, I can show you, that first x-ray, you're sort of looking at this, you're looking at the chest from the front, you're looking at straight, yep, there it is. So, that's the right lung and the left lung, and the black areas are the air-filled spaces in your lungs. You're looking in those areas, so those sharp edges at the bottom of each lung, you want to make sure they stay sharp, that you don't get fluid that's sort of accumulating in that area. Again, it's a little bit hard to tell on television there. It is a little bit hazy in some of those areas in the more center of your lungs. So maybe a little bit of infiltrate in that area, but not significant, nothing that's sort of accumulated there, Chris. But, you'd look at that and you'd say maybe this is somebody who's dealing with a little bit of a respiratory infection. So, and then of course the other x-ray that you showed was looking at the same, obviously, picture just from the side and sort of confirms the same thing.
Right.
There it is there.
And look, again,
so again, the spine is right in the middle.
So that's why it looks like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
exactly.
Okay.
I mean,
you can be sick. It doesn't mean you're going to have pneumonia, and I just want people to feel okay about that. If I'm okay with it, you should be okay with it. And what I want to do is I want to take a quick break, and I want to talk about where we all...
Well, that's Chris Cuomo, who looks in fine health there. Thank goodness he was saved. And that's CNN's official doctor saying, yes, I can see the infiltrate. Luckily, you're not dead. Now, in response to that video, I saw a lot of people online saying, I'm a radiologist, and no, there ain't nothing there. Commenter after commenter saying that, and I thought, well, I don't know who's right. These are just online people. Maybe they're faking being a radiologist. The CNN's house doctor didn't have right in front of him access to the x-rays. Maybe he was just making it up to go along with the narrative, but I happen to know a radiologist, my own father, Dr. Marvin Levant. He's retired now, but for 40 years, he looked at x-rays, hundreds of thousands of them over the course of his career, and I sent him that video there and said, Dad, can I ask you about Andrew Cuomo's x-rays? And I'm pleased to say my father, Marvin Levant, joins us now via Skype from Calgary. Hi, Dad. How you doing?
Hi, Ez. Good to speak with you.
Thank you. Now, I watched that, and I don't want to say that Chris Cuomo's a liar. He said he had coronavirus. I don't think he missed a day of work. He looks very healthy to me. Maybe he's just a very fit man and had a very slight case. But he certainly is milking it day after day. He brought those x-rays on the show, and CNN's in-house doctor said, oh yeah, I can see the infiltrate there. Can you start off by telling us, what is infiltrate? I've honestly never heard that word before in a medical setting. What does it mean?
First of all, he's a better radiologist than I, because it took him 1 second to realize that there was an infiltrate. I studied it in some detail, and I would have asked for one more view of the chest. It's called an apical lordotic, A-P-I-C-A-L, and then lordotic, just to confirm that the apex of the right lung is free of any disease. As for an infiltrate, it means nothing. An infiltrate It covers pretty well the whole span of involvement of the lungs, with the exception of major tumors and fluid. So calling it normal on what you saw on CNN, which in Calgary stands for certainly not news, is reasonable. But I personally would have asked for one more view to confirm that it is a normal chest X-ray.
Okay, so let me slow you down for a second. So infiltrate, is that what you're saying? That's just anything in the lungs that is not naturally that like infiltrating. So it could be fluid, it could be anything that's not supposed to be there. Is that what that means?
Right. It could be most anything, with the exception of certain areas that we call the mediastinum. That's the central part of the chest.
Okay. So what the CNN doctor was saying, where he said, "Oh yeah, I can see a little bit of infiltrate there." Was he right? Can you see some infiltrate there? Was Chris Cuomo right in those X-rays? I know you said you would have requested one more shot if you were the doctor on the spot.
I would have given it an approval rating if that apical orthotic film was normal.
Okay, so what you saw there, let me be crystal clear because you're still using a bit of jargon. From the X-rays you saw, and it looks like they had a couple of different views there, is Chris Cuomo's X-ray that he showed on CNN, is that a healthy lung or not?
I would say that it is a healthy lung, but I would want, for my own satisfaction, to confirm it with one more view.
Got it. So perhaps he did have another view that he just wasn't showing. I can imagine the CNN producer would say, well, all these look the same, I'll just put up two of them. So he may have had that. And I'm not casting aspersions on the care he received. But there you had Chris Cuomo and the CNN doctor both claiming that they could see that infiltrate a mile away. That's just not true, is it?
No, it's not true. They could not. I, having studied it a bit longer than what they probably did, just wanted confirmation in one area was of no significance in the way of infiltration. Infiltration does not mean tumor, it does not mean infection. It is an area that is not lung tissue or has been replaced by something else.
Got it. All right. Well, I think you've answered the question for me. You've confirmed what these online radiologists said immediately, that Chris Cuomo was just hamming things up a little bit. And if he indeed had coronavirus, I don't blame him for making himself part of the story. It's the biggest story of the year. It's just a bit much that he's pretending to be a victim when he at least no longer is, even if he once was. Let me just ask you one quick question before you go. Thanks very much for answering these questions. I think you confirmed my hunch. In Calgary, I know you're retired now, but you still have friends in the medical system. I've heard reports from around North America that the massive preparation, the shutting down of non-essential elective surgeries, the rushing to hospitals of extra ventilators, et cetera, that curve, that high demand has not yet happened, that ICUs are in fact quite empty, that doctors and nurses are undertasked. I've seen reports like that around the country. Do you have any reports from friends or former colleagues in hospitals in Alberta? What's it like there?
I've heard of no extra pressure points. The number of cases and the number of deaths is certainly within the range of the normal flu time of year. These infections are no different than the standard spring flu. In Canada, we had 3,500 deaths last year from the seasonal flu. And this is roughly the same scale that we're having now in Canada of coronavirus.
Huh. All right, well, listen, thanks so much for taking the time and lending your expertise. And I have to look up a few of the fancier words that you said, but I think on my main question, did Chris Cuomo see anything in his x-rays that was abnormal? I think your answer was pretty clear, and the answer was not in those x-rays. He didn't. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Good. Right,
cheers. Well, there's my dad, Dr. Marvin Levant, joining us via Skype from Calgary. That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.